All right, so the food, we were just talking about what happens in the oral cavity in your mouth. And we had said that we have the mechanical digestion by chewing. We have the mucus that has been added to form what we call a bolus. And we had the serous fluid with the digestive enzymes added to this blob of food that then makes its way through the esophagus to the stomach. Now, in your stomach, we're going to talk about gastric secretions. We haven't gotten to that. It'll be in a couple of slides. But in gastric secretions, we're going to talk about these are the enzymes and the acid and the mucus that is secreted in your stomach. But all of this begins with even the thought of food. Now, there are certain kinds of food, especially something sour. If I think about it, all of a sudden, I'll get salivary secretions, and that's all part of it as well. So, but it starts your stomach secreting these enzymes and mucus. Just thinking of food or smelling food or seeing food. And so this phase of gastric secretions is called cephalic. And cephalic is referring to your head. So it's the thought, or it's the intellectual, if you will, version, stimulus of starting this digestive process. Then when the food enters your stomach, we have the gastric phase of gastric secretions. Now, we're going to talk about three different hormones, 3 or 4, now that I'm thinking about them, that are going to be involved in the digestive process. And one of them is something called gastrin. And gastrin is released into the circulatory system. It's released into the circulatory system, and it has its effect on the stomach. The target organ for the hormone is the stomach. So the entering of food, just having food enter into your stomach, causes the release of a hormone called gastrin. Gastrin. And what gastrin does is it stimulates release of gastric juices, digestive juices in your stomach. Okay, so when food moves into your stomach, the gastric phase of gastric secretions involves the release of the hormone gastrin, which stimulates the stomach to release its digestive enzymes. Now, there's a third stage of the gastric secretions, and it's the intestinal stage. As food leaves the stomach and enters into the small intestine, you are still getting some gastrin released. And when we talk about it, one of the slides coming up, we'll talk about how it takes quite a while for food to make its way through your stomach, and it's slowly being secreted into the small intestine. And so that makes sense that it's still stimulating gastric secretions. So what happens? So on slide number 6, I guess it is, we look at gastric secretions. Now remember, we had said parasympathetic impulses stimulate digestion. So parasympathetic impulses stimulate the release of this hormone gastrin. And what does the hormone do? It causes the release of gastric juices. Now, on slide 6, I think I'm going to go on and stop here, and we'll pick up gastric juices. So what are we talking about being released? All of this stuff we've talked about right here is talking about gastric juices. Next talk, we'll say, well, what are those gastric juices?